Hey, deserving listeners, let's continue watching the interviews with the Love is Blind cast. Let's watch.
It's like, wait, I don't have any ill will in my heart. I'm with you because I love you. I'm with you because I want to marry you. But I got to be me, which means I'm going to joke, which means I'm going to speak freely, which means I'm going to not walk on eggshells. And I'm just going to be a human. I'm going to be Cole. And I'm not a mean person. I'm not going to put you down or hurt you. In fact, I want to encourage you and build you up. But then it's like along the way, if you have insecurities and you're broken in some ways and you start getting hurt and walked on, you have to vocalize that to me so we can work through that. And you have to that's really your stuff to own.
Yeah, I don't like the word broken. And usually that's coming from clients. They'll say, I'm broken. I'll be like, you're not broken. You have schemas and reactivity that made total sense when you were growing up, and you're misapplying it to your adult life where it doesn't apply anymore. But that's what everyone does. Everyone learns lessons when they're young, and they get locked in our personality, and then we just apply them all the time because it worked all the time when we were kids, or most of the time when we were kids, and we never are able to reflect on that. So, and we don't know of how to get out of that. Anyway, but he's saying that he wishes that she would have said something to him. Absolutely. I think that is a rational complaint of Zeneb, that she was harboring clearly a lot of anger towards him and was either kind of communicating it to him or not communicating at all. And I think he concludes that it has to do with women today, and he's not saying feminism, but I don't know, but women today, because women do this and men do that. And I think it has, again, more to do with something that has been present prior to the internet and prior to all the cultural aspects I'm talking about, which is, generally speaking, what we would call abandonment schemas or betrayal schemas. Listen to my episodes on schema therapy.
Insecurities and you're broken in some ways and you start getting hurt and walked on, you have to vocalize that to me so we can work through that. And you have to that's really your stuff to own. You've got to have some self-awareness and own that in your own space, or else you're going to do what happens, which is project it all on the other person.
Yeah, so it's not projection, it's displacement, but I don't know. It's what people use, and I guess it makes sense. It feels like projection. That seems like a good metaphor, but technically that's not it. And he's saying that you need to own that and have some self-awareness around that and not displace it onto the other person, not distort it. And absolutely, I think that there's a very good possibility that if a team of relational therapists were able to evaluate and assess and observe Cole and Zeneb while they were in a relationship, that most of those clinicians would have that perspective, that Zeneb lacked insight enough or self-awareness enough to own her displacements, to own her schema reactivity. Do I think that Zeneb had reasons to be upset? Yeah, I do. We saw it. Do I think that in all likelihood, if she were assessed and the relationship was assessed, that the clinicians assessing would conclude and develop the conceptualization that she was exaggerating those hurts and those perspectives? I think that that's probably likely. But so he's describing that, I think, pretty well. And I just wish that he would consider this to be something that all humans will do. Not just women, and certainly not all women, not all men. And maybe that would be one thing to suss out when you start to date someone, is how insightful they are about their own issues. I've talked about, in a previous episode, about developing some sort of measure that my green flags for dating, and that would be a big one, right? Is, does the person you're dating have insight and self-awareness, and how do you suss that out in the first 5 dates? One question you could ask your dating partner is, I guess, there's a way to do it where you literally just ask your dating partner, say, hey, so I have this thing called this green flag thing, and so can you, and feel free to ask me the same question if you want to, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but if we're dating, this is a big deal to me, and rather than beating around the bush and being passive and hidden in my attempt to suss this out, I thought I'd just ask you if that's okay. And don't feel like you're under any kind of pressure. I like you, and I want to make sure that maybe we're a good match. And here's one of the questions. In addition to asking you questions like, do you want to have kids, or where do you want to live, that kind of stuff, I think this is more fundamental, which has to do with self-awareness. And so I'm going to ask you this question, which would be, what's one aspect of your personality that presents problems in romantic relationships? And end of question. Just what's something about your personality? So try it out yourself, just reverse it to yourself. Answer this question and pause the video if you need to and jot some notes down. Answer the question, what is it about your personality, one aspect that presents problems, self-destructive or harmful to the other person, or it mucks up the works when you're trying to date someone? What's one aspect of your personality that is problematic to dating? So pause there. Usually it has to do with past relational traumas. Sometimes we don't know because we don't remember 0 to 5, or sometimes people don't remember much about their childhood at all, so sometimes we don't really know where it comes from. But common answers to this question would have something to do with, well, I tend to displace my mom onto people I date because or I'm sensitive to criticism. I'm overly sensitive to criticism. Or I assume people are going to abandon me when they might not be abandoning me. Or I put up walls when I detect that someone might not like me. Or I am preoccupied attachment and I will criticize people for not paying more attention to me, or something like that. These are the things I just rattled off are extremely common in very common personality issues that everyone has to some extent, but some people, a number of people have to a significant extent. So you could ask someone that you're dating, and you could lead the way. You'd be like, look, I'll tell you something for me, and my thing is this. What's your thing? And if they can't answer that question, I don't want to say it's a red flag, but it'd be hard to check the green flag box on that list that I hope to one day make. Maybe I'm sure other people have come out with similar lists, but I don't know. It just seems interesting to come up with that list based on research. So I think that it's important to have that. And what Cole is talking about is he didn't see that in Zeneb, and maybe he didn't see that in his ex-wife as well. It doesn't have to do with gender.
Have some self-awareness and own that in your own space, or else you're going to do what happens, which is project it all on the other person. And then everyone watches it and goes, okay, wait a second. This doesn't look right. Why is she saying he did all these things when he didn't? Well, it's because she feels that, but it's not what's really happening. Mm-hmm. It's just based on insecurities.
Yeah, it's a really good conceptualization too. I don't know if it's true for Zeneb, but given what we've seen and heard, it does fit as a starting point of exploration, that it's the way it feels to her. And that's an important insight for him, because a common conclusion is that when someone's attacking you like that, it's because they're choosing to, because they just are a jerk face, kind of related to what he was saying earlier, right? That, women are infected with these. He didn't say that exactly, but yeah. Point is that is my way of seeing human beings, is that when people are jerk faces or being unfair or being unfairly hostile or having a reaction that doesn't make a lot of sense, are a sort of common conclusion is the individual is doing it on purpose. Think about your partners. Whenever your partner is annoying to you or hurtful in a way, it's common to conclude that individual is doing it on purpose, that they're just like, it's cold, it's calculated, it's planned. But the vast majority of the time, in my experience, the individual is having something triggered in them. And so for Zeneb, I think, and I said this before, that when Cole would say something along the lines of the things that she would complain about, it would affect her in a way, given her perceptual distortions, that it would amplify what happened times 10. And then she would be hurt times 10 because the perception was times 10. And then when you're hurt times 10, you feel justified in being hostile, right? Whereas if she saw it more along the lines of what a lot of other people would have seen it as, meaning that it wouldn't be distorted and exaggerated. It would have been a 1 out of 10, and she would have had a 1 out of 10 hurt, and then would have potentially not been hostile or approached him in a very different way. She could have complained. So, I don't like it when you say those things. I know you're not meaning it to hurt me. But the way that she talked about it, at the altar and other places, she seems to be believing that he did those things on purpose, that he was trying to tear her down. The things she said at the altar, like, you did those things to tear my self-esteem down, but I'm not going to let you do that. That kind of talk. I don't know if that's exactly, but that was the sort of gist of what she was saying. But I think she's revised that point of view because it's a year and a half later and she's had more time to differentiate. But anyway, so Cole is saying that it was the way that it feels to her because of her insecurities, and then because it feels that way, then she operates from that feeling rather than taking a differentiated look at her feelings and going like, are those feelings exaggerated? Are they rational in this moment? Are they helpful? So yeah, I think that a lot of people would agree with Cole in that moment.
There was red flags leading up, which is why we had the conversation at dinner where I really pressed her and I was really asking hard questions. And when that scene came out, and no one had seen our wedding or seen the reunion, a lot of people were like, dude, what are you doing? Like, why would you ask someone that? And then now that the wedding and the reunion has come out, everyone's like, oh, dang, we get it now. They're like, we see why you were questioning like that. Like, you were trying to get to the bottom of what's with the back and forth. What's with the saying one thing, doing another? Like, why?
Right. So he is, I think, talking about the bipolar and other conversations that they've had, which I've already been over.
Why are you saying you're 1,000% ready to marry me? Whenever you're going to do what, like, think about that. She told me, I don't know if it's in the show. I think it's in the show. She either says 100% or 1,000% in the show, but she told me I'm 1,000% ready to marry you. And then 2 days later did what she did at the altar.
Yeah.
Does that make sense why I asked her what I asked her? It's like I was trying to decipher what I was hearing with what she was showing me.
Yeah, and who knows? He could be lying or distorting himself. But yeah, it would make sense that he would be confused about that, and it would lend itself to the conceptualization that she is quote unquote two-faced. It's not bipolar, it's not schizophrenia, it's just two different contradictory behaviors. That's all you know. You don't know anything about pathology, but also it'd be very confusing, and you could start to wonder, well, what was really going on there? Because one has to probably be faked, right? You are either faking that you're angry at me or faking that you were 1,000% wanting to marry me. The latter seems more likely, right? It's the more rational conceptualization. All right, well, that is it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself and take care of others because we all deserve it. We really, really do.